Pro wrestlers can walk a multitude of different paths, from the dizzying heights of New Japan Pro Wrestling's Tokyo Dome events, down to the more intimate vibe of the various regional independent promotions throughout the country. But there's one thing that almost every Japanese pro wrestler will have in common. Their life in the business will have more than likely begun inside of a dojo. The term dojo is defined by Webster as a school for training in various arts of self-defense. It literally translates to place of the way in Japanese. There are several pro wrestling dojos throughout Japan. Some, like the ones owned by both New and All Japan Pro Wrestling, are directly affiliated with companies themselves, while others like Animal Hamaguchi's are independent. But the idea in all of them largely remains the same. The dojo is the place where would-be talents are shaped and molded into everything that a pro wrestler is expected to be, both mentally and physically. These often small and extremely cramped buildings will not only provide those within with their wrestling training, but most often they'll also house the trainees during their training period. And in addition to learning their craft, trainees are also tasked with a number of menial chores such as cleaning the dojo, washing the ring gear of their seniors, cooking for each other, and in some cases even working directly with senior wrestlers as their personal assistants, as was the case with Shinjiro Otani and Shinya Hashimoto during Otani's formative years. While prospective trainees may have achieved degrees of success in various other fields prior to their arrival, once they walk through the doors of the dojo, they're viewed equal to all of their fellow trainees. This is done as a method of earning your place and truly starting from the bottom within the company, to see if trainees possess the mental toughness as well as the physical capabilities that pro wrestling requires. While the dojo system has been around for several years, is a proven success and has undeniably produced some of the greatest professional wrestlers of all time, it's also notorious for the levels of physical and mental punishment that students are expected to go through. Take for instance this now infamous clip of Meiko Satomura and trainee Saika Takeuchi from Kim Longinotto's 2000 documentary Gaia Girls, which focused on life training under Joshi Puroresu legend Chigusa Nagayo.
自分で痛いところ隠してそれで終わり？もう試合しません。それで終わり？お客さん何も分かんないじゃん。はい。あんたプロじゃないよ。全然。
This is just one of several stories of dojo brutality to achieve a degree of notoriety. There's also this clip of Satoru Sayama, aka the original Tiger Mask, beating one of his students with a cane. And while this took place in his mixed martial arts dojo, it wouldn't be too far out the realm of possibility to say that this probably gives you an idea of what life was like for his pro wrestling students too. Stories of injury and mental and physical abuse inside of dojos may be commonplace, but sadly there are a select few unfortunate occasions where would-be wrestlers who entered the dojo to chase a dream unfortunately never walked back out. Today we're going to be looking at 4 Japanese professional wrestlers who tragically and prematurely lost their lives during training. Takayuki Okada, better known as Giant Ochiai, was a mixed martial artist and judoka born on May 8, 1973 in Akita. Okada was a 4-time league champion in judo during high school and upon graduation began training in Seido Kaikan under Naoyuki Taida, which would be the beginning of his foray into mixed martial arts. Okada, as Giant Ochiai, made his mixed martial arts debut in June 2000, and while his career wasn't a wild success with a record of 3-3-2, he did gain popularity and attention for his trademark afro and sunglasses, and competed for Pride on a number of occasions between 2000 and 2002, winning 3 of those fights. Standing over 6 feet tall and weighing 290 pounds, it made sense that Ochiai would eventually try his hand at pro wrestling, and he made his debut in 2000 for Yuki Ishikawa's Battle Arts promotion. While Battle Arts was a pro wrestling promotion, it was very heavily influenced by shoot style, with no pinfalls, a victory only gained by knockout or submission, and a heavy focus on grappling, strikes, and legit submission work. Ochiai would compete sporadically for the promotion between 2000 and 2001. Eventually, 2 years later, Ochiai would join Riki Choshu's new WJ promotion, where he would properly begin his pro wrestling training and aim to make his full-fledged debut. Choshu spent big upon the formation of WJ, and one of the things he did was build a brand new state-of-the-art dojo, where Ochiai would formally begin his pro wrestling training in 2003. He would be primarily coached by Kenzo Suzuki, one of a number of former New Japan Pro Wrestling talents who'd followed Choshu in the formation of WJ following his exodus from New Japan Pro Wrestling. I won't go into great detail on the calamitous history of WJ in this video, but it was, to say the least, absolutely rife with scandal. Ochiai nevertheless began training with WJ. However, not long into his training on July 28, 2003, under the eye of Kenzo Suzuki, Ochiai collapsed and became unresponsive. He later fell into a coma and was diagnosed with an acute subdural hematoma, which, if you know your recent pro wrestling history, is the same injury that essentially almost ended Katsuyori Shibata's career a few years ago. After being urgently rushed to Showa University Hospital, Ochiai would undergo brain surgery and remain in a coma until August 8, 2003, when, unfortunately, he would succumb to his injuries and pass away. Katsuji Nagashima, co-founder and co-owner of WJ, who, along with co-founder and co-owner Riki Choshu, was present at the time of the incident, later said in an interview with Nikan Sports that Ochiai had visibly wobbled on his feet and collapsed after a simple rolling break fall. This was later disputed by Masaki Satake, the legendary karateka and kickboxer who had known Ochiai from his days in Seido Kaikan. Satake said he felt that a technique as simple as the rolling break fall that Ochiai supposedly did would not cause an injury and accident as grave as what happened to him, especially to a judoka as experienced as Ochiai was at the time of his death. Nagashima would say he made contact with Satake's agent and informed him of his side of events from that day, but that after a period of time, Satake's agent stopped contacting him back, and also claimed that Satake and his agent were trying to place the sole blame for Ochiai's death on WJ. He'd also later claim in his book that Ochiai had apparently come straight to the dojo after working his part-time job all night long and complained of feeling unwell to Nagashima, who instructed him to sit out most of that day's training session, and noted that once he collapsed, he barely practiced at all. In light of Nagashima's comments and Riki Chosu's refusal to publicly accept responsibility for Ochiai's death, WJ faced severe media scrutiny in the aftermath. Police spoke to Nagashima, Choshu and Kenzo Suzuki, and after interviewing all of them, ruled Ochiai's death to have been accidental. It's stated on Wikipedia and a number of other sources that Kenzo Suzuki was supposedly blackballed by every promotion in Japan in the aftermath of this incident and supposedly fled to America, where the only place he could get work was out there with the likes of TNA and MLW. This isn't exactly true. While Kenzo did indeed work for TNA and MLW in 2003, this was over a 4-day period in June 2003, a full month before Ochiai's death. What is true is that Suzuki would leave the promotion and sign with WWE soon after, and while I don't think he was blackballed due to the fact he worked extensively in Japan since he left WWE, and he wasn't the first trainer to oversee an accidental death in a dojo, it's quite obvious this incident is probably what led to his departure from the promotion and pursuit of opportunities in America. Ochiai's wake was held on August 13th, attended by Nagashima, Satake, Kazushi Sakuraba, and Nobuhiko Takada. He was 30 years old. The second incident we're going to be talking about today is more well known due to the fact that it took place in the biggest promotion in the entire country, New Japan Pro Wrestling. In the year 1994, company mainstay Hiroshi Hase had observed a new prospective talent for the company, scouting and recruiting 22-year-old Hiromitsu Gompei, an amateur wrestling standout who had recently become a champion at collegiate level. Due to the strong apprehension of his parents, it took Hase several visits to the Gompei family home to convince them to allow their son to pursue a career in professional wrestling, but eventually, after assuring them that he would be well looked after in the New Japan Dojo, they relented, and Gompei began his training in January of 1995. Now, the details of this incident are extremely cloudy, even more so than the one surrounding Giant Ochiai's death, but what is known is that on January 27th, 1995, Gompei collapsed after a head injury in the New Japan Pro Wrestling Dojo. The man presiding over that training session was then New Japan star Kensuke Sasaki. It's not known and has never been confirmed what caused Gompei's injury. There are several rumors, but none of which I will be repeating in this video because absolutely none of them are backed up with concrete evidence. What we do know is that when interrogated by police, Sasaki said Gompei had hit his head during training and become unresponsive. Gompei was taken to hospital, where he was diagnosed with a cerebral contusion. 4 days after his accident on January 31st, 1995, Gompei passed away. His death was ruled accidental by police. No charges were ever filed against anyone who was present in the dojo that day, and no lawsuit was ever filed by Gompei's parents. It's widely believed that this incident is part of what led Hiroshi Hase to leave New Japan and jump to their biggest rivals, All Japan Pro Wrestling, soon after. Other than Sasaki's statement to the police, this incident has not been commented on. There have been no clarification as to what caused Gompei's death in the years since, and there likely never will be. It's never been referenced by New Japan ever again, and it's very much the incident they don't touch, a la the WWE and Chris Benoit. So the last two incidents that I'm going to talk about won't be anywhere near as detailed and long as the other two, simply because information about them is much harder to come across. In quite possibly the first ever documented case of somebody dying in a dojo, in 1975, Oscar Ichijo died while training in the All Japan Women's Pro Wrestling dojo. Ichijo had debuted with the promotion the previous year, and her death was not treated as being suspicious. And finally, in 1997, Toshiki Nagai was a trainee with Big Japan Pro Wrestling who collapsed and suffered a brain hemorrhage whilst training in their dojo. The company would later promote a tribute card to him in September of that year. Well, this was a very deep and heavy subject to explore for my first video of this kind, but one that was quite interesting to research. It's an unfortunate but dark reality of Puroresu that rarely ever gets mentioned, so I thought it was worth perhaps shedding some light on some of these incidents that perhaps some people may not have even known about. In closing, I would like to say rest in peace to everybody that I mentioned in this video, and I would also like to thank you for watching.